Hello, this is Crochet Basics with Jolie, and in this episode I'm going to show you 3 different ways to attach your granny squares together. So in a previous episode I showed you how to make the granny squares, just basic ones, you know, for starters. You got a few options and each one has pros and cons and stuff, so they will have their good points and they will have their, you know, their downfalls or what have you. But either way, the first one I'll show you is crocheting them together. Now this is the front side of your granny square. This is the side, the right side is what it would be called. And this is the side that faces you as you're making it. And this is the back side. And you can see the difference if you look at it closely. You can see, you know, the twists or what have you, and in the back it's bumpier, so to speak. Okay, but what you can do for starters is you can crochet them together with you know, a hook. Super simple, and you can crochet them as you go, or you can, you know, make a few and line them up. Okay, so you would go in a corner, you would line them up. You can pin them. I usually do not use straight pins, my choice, with the yarn or whatever, because I'm always afraid that I'll miss one when I'm taking them out. So, but you can always use stitch markers, you know, like the safety pins that, you know, are big and plastic and bright, and you can see them, you know, perfectly clear. Okay, so your first option here is to crochet them together. And you would go through, you would line them up, okay? And you would go through each stitch, matching them up as you go, lining them up. And with this one, this one's good. It's easy, you know. I don't recommend it if you do different size squares, like fancy, you know, different size fancy squares and stuff. And when you get to where your chaining is, you can either just go through one side of the chaining, you know, instead of both, you know, or you can just go right around, okay, and then pick up 2 and then just go through. And that's if you don't, you know, if you didn't make a border for the squares themselves. Okay, and I'm just showing you, you know, you'd pick them up. With the crocheting, I would suggest, if you're going to crochet them together, I would suggest, you know, you have a bunch ready to go so you can, you know, do them as you go. And that's one way of doing it. Just crocheting them together, line them up, crochet them together. If you're going to sew them together, let me show you. Okay, and crocheting them together is super easy. It goes quick, you know, because you're crocheting. And you just line them up and you go. If you're going to sew them together, sewing is good. It takes longer if you're sewing them together. And with the sewing, you would just sew, you know, same thing, both right side facing you. And you would only sew around one edge. One of your the back side of the braid. Okay, so you would have a seam, you know, your front loops would not be sewn. And sewing is good. It's perfect for when you have them, the fancy squares, the different size squares, not all the same size, but the only thing with the sewing is that it does take a long time to sew them together. You do get a good bond though, like, you know, it will stay together longer. And I'm just showing you in a color that I wouldn't normally sew it together or whatever, but you would have this here, which these are your front loops, and you would, you know, just keep going along with that, and you know, hopefully picking up each side, you know, one side of the braid. Another way of attaching your granny squares is to crochet as you go. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to do this as quick as possible. I don't want to eat up too much of your time. But this is a square, the same, you know, almost the same size. It's not, it's halfway done. Okay, so with that, let's see, in the corner, you know, you would do your chain, you know, your 2 chaining or whatever, but you would chain 1 and you would go right into the corner of your next, the one you're attaching it to. Okay, and you want to line up your edge that's finished. Okay, and you'll pull up, pull through, chain. Okay, and then you'll just go right back in and finish your square with that. So this is our corner. So we got our 3 there, chain 1. Okay, then you would go into the one you're attaching it to. You would pull up a loop, slip, chain 1, okay, and then go back to the one that you're working. So you would just chain 1, then you would slip around, pull up a loop, right, your other side, okay, pull through another chain, and then you would work your 3 double crochet. And with this one, the chain as you go, this one is good because you can just attach it, you know, attach it as you're going, no big deal. The only thing is, you know, in the corners you have to make sure you get, like, you know, you hit, if when you're adding your 3rd corner, you know, your 3rd square and your 4th square, that you're catching all 4 corners. And I do suggest, you know, a border with that, all the way around the blanket, a single crochet or some kind of a shell or some kind of something, you know, just so that it's nice and stable. And you know, the one I have in the back is actually one of my favorite blankies. And it's sewn together, and this one I love, you know, it's definitely gotten some love, but I sewed it together. And I love this one because I every time, you know, I finished a project or whatever and I had a little bit of yarn left over or whatever, I made a nice little square. I sewed them together with a cream color acrylic yarn, and then I put a little border on it, you know, so you could see it's been washed a few times and all that kind of thing, and it gets a lot of loving in my house. So I hope this is helpful for you. So you got your 3 choices. You can crochet them together as you go, crochet them together after you're done, or sew them together. And you know, it depends on your choice, you know, but they all have their good points and their bad points, you know. The sewing is perfect for different size squares. We'll, you know, hold them together nice and tight, and sewing them together or whatever, but sewing, you know, it gives it nice and sturdy, but it takes a long time to sew them together, you know, to get through each, and you're sitting there, you know, so it depends. Crocheting them together as you go is nice, but you might want to put a border on it just to give it some stability, you know, make it more sturdy around. And crocheting them, you know, after you're all done, if you were to crochet them together, you know, then they're sturdy also. That's just like the that's very much just like the sewing them together. They're nice and sturdy and nice and together. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, please ask. Please subscribe. I'm on Pinterest and Facebook and all kinds of things, and I have all new patterns and stuff coming out. And my next tutorial is granny square rectangle. So I'll show you a quick and easy way to do the granny rectangle. So thank you so much for watching. Have a super great day, and happy hooking as always, because it keeps you off the streets. Take care now. Have a good one.